Guys, I have Sam Webster with me today, and the reason that I've invited Sam to talk with us today is because I thought, who could I speak to when first doing these podcasts to actually bring massive value to you, and who has brought massive value to me as a clinician? And Sam was one of the first ones that I thought of, because from even back in university as a physiotherapy student, I remember looking at anatomy textbooks and thinking, what the heck is going on in this flat 2D thing? What are all these words? I need someone that's going to break this down. Let's go to YouTube and have a look. And I've found a lot of different people, but Sam, and the way that he breaks things down, the way he teaches things, it's so relaxed, but it's brought to you from a load of different angles. So from my perspective, it was absolutely a godsend in terms of learning anatomy. So I thought, who best to bring some high value to one of my fourth recording of podcasts? And I thought, I'll ask Sam, and lo and behold, he said yes. So Sam, thank you so much for agreeing to be on this today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
No worries.
I'm used to nattering about stuff, particularly anatomy. They pay me to do it, literally.
Fantastic. So Sam, I'll jump straight into it so that I'm not waffling. Would you mind telling us why you're so passionate about teaching anatomy?
Yeah, because they pay me. Yeah.
Because they pay.
Perfect.
Right, we'll move on. Yeah.
I wasn't, well, I'm not supposed to be here, you see. That's the trick. This wasn't the aim. This wasn't the goal. So I was, let's go back to my school days. So I was one of those kids who was interested in science and just wanted to know how everything works. Like those TV programs that just showed you like the inside of factories or how anything works, fascinated by. So at school, with my A-levels, I did biology, chemistry and physics because I wanted to know how everything works. And it could have gone either way. It could have gone the biology route or the physics route, to be honest. But at the end of school, when you've got the three sciences, it's like, well, what do you go on and do with that? And it was my biology teacher who pointed me towards an anatomical sciences degree at Cardiff University. So I signed up for that. I was actually in the guinea pig year, so I had to wait. I took a year out and worked in the local microbiology lab and stuff like that, which the same teacher pointed me towards, actually. Shows you how important teachers are, right? So I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I got fed down this route. She knew me better than I knew me. And, I didn't know what an anatomical sciences degree was until I started looking at it. And it was great because I got to learn how the body works. You've got the anatomy, but then you've got the physiology and the biochemistry and the philosophy of science and paleontology and everything else on top. And then I did a PhD because I realised that science was really cool, and that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to do science and research. And the PhD was fantastic. Hardest thing I've ever done, but one of the best things I've ever done. So then I got into research and I was working as a postdoctoral research associate, quite happy with my research, I had my own grant funding, so I was essentially employing myself and had my own ideas I was following. And then Swansea University was starting up a medical school, and that means there's a whole bunch of new lecturer posts. I wasn't interested, I didn't apply for them, but a lot of colleagues did. And my colleague who got the anatomy job realised the anatomy job was too big for one person, so she asked me if I would apply, and I still wasn't interested. But people pointed out to me that, well, it's a permanent job, lectureship posts are pretty rare, you should apply for it. So I came over pretty relaxed, really, wasn't that interested in the job. And in the interview, I think I got talked into it. And it was made very clear to me what the job was. It's very much a teaching-focused job. And at this point, my teaching experience had been as a histology demonstrator during my PhD. That was it. I think in the interview I talked about how I teach my friends to climb because that's what climbers do, and how it's kind of mission critical to not screw that up because, serious consequences. Yeah, and they offered me the job, and that was 21 and a half years ago, and I kept meaning to go and get another job, but I really like it, and it's really good fun. So, to answer your question, it turns out that I really like talking about my favourite subjects to people that need to understand these favourite subjects to get wherever they want to get to in life. Teaching is actually very selfish. It's not selfless, it's very selfish because you get very rapid job satisfaction, right? You teach the session, you see immediately what's happening, And then at the end of the first year, they progress. You feel good. In the second year, they progress. We've got graduation next week, so all these guys are graduating. It just feels so good, right? That's what it is.
Yeah. So massive, like, full heart kind of moment with it when you're teaching.
Yeah, it's particularly the weaker students that I really enjoy working with, because they're really the clever, strong people with skills because they want to become doctors, right? But they just struggle with anatomy. Maybe their visuospatial ability is a little bit weak. I can help with that. And if I help with that and they get better and they do well as a result and then they become doctors, that feels awesome. It's like, I feel useful, right? Which is what we want to feel, being part of the society.
Absolutely. That's exactly why I'm doing what I'm doing, because I've seen people that are absolutely awesome at their job just fail at interview because they get so nervous about it, because they panic. So I'm just teaching them how to tap into the nervous system to get control of it. So tap into that, so the parasympathetic nervous system to just kind of dampen down that sympathetic response there, and then give them some communication tips and skills so that they can actually demonstrate their best capabilities. And from my point of view, in terms of working with clinicians and also developing clinicians, you do see that recently the awareness and the ability to kind of rattle off anatomy and rattle it off well in terms of it being relevant is declining from a physiotherapy point of view. That's all I can talk about. I can't talk for anybody else in terms of clinicians. But for me, it would make sense that I'm just going to, for people that don't know anatomy and that are quite new to it, I'm going to just really kind of level it down. If I am a mechanic and I'm working on a Ferrari, so something as complex as an F1 car or a MotoGP bike, such as is the human body, it's rather complex and more so than those machines are. I can't just go to it and go, oh, it's got a rusty wheel nut, I'll just tap it and put some olive oil on it because I've heard that's good. I need to understand the complexities, and that's a really simple thing with it. With an oil nut, maybe something to do with the engine is more pertinent to my example. But we haven't helped ourselves from a physio profession recently in terms of social media, and not so much the teaching at universities, because they definitely try to get the anatomy side of things in, but because there's such a breadth of what they need to learn, it is very much an onus on the clinician to go and learn it. So having things like your YouTube channel for people that aren't too sure on it is definitely vital. So thank you so much for actually having that content and putting it out there, not just for your students but for everybody else in the world as well, because it is really useful. But what I'm seeing is that in terms of them being able to apply clinical anatomy, social media, as I've just briefly mentioned, are saying, oh, well, special tests aren't that special. So when you're diagnosing a shoulder, for example, a rotator cuff, special tests aren't that special, don't rely on them, and they're poo-pooing them on social media because there's a bit of controversy, and yes, the research suggests, but that's why we use clusters of tests. But if you as a clinician don't understand what nerves supply what muscles, for example, or what supplies the capsule versus the tendon structure, then you're not going to do your best for that patient. And technically, if you don't know what you're talking about, then who are you to advise your patient and advise them well? You're probably actually better off as a patient looking on Google if your clinician hasn't taken the time to learn the nuances of anatomy, how it is applied, and how we can utilise it to actually improve function, improve pain responses and things like that. And all the tactical nuances like vibration tendon reflexes, I like to show my clinicians with shoulder pain and rotator cuff. So just tapping on the infraspinatus, getting that just for 60 seconds, a nice vibration tendon reflex, then get them to remove the arm. All of a sudden, the subacromial pain is a lot less and the patient thinks you're a magician because you've applied some anatomy and some physical techniques. So for me, without clinicians in terms of interviews and clinical practice, without them knowing the anatomy, they're missing a trick. And I think it's a shame that it isn't kind of shouted from the rooftops how awesome it is and how interesting it is, but also how important it is to help your patients. So that's why I appreciate the way you deliver things, because it, like you said initially, with the students that don't seem to kind of gel with it, it just brings a different way to learn something, and you do it so fluidly. And every YouTube video that I've watched of yours, which is many, you come back to things as well. You loop back and you come at it from a different angle. So I genuinely find it ridiculously valuable. So this is why I'm kind of doing this episode with you today as well, because I just think it's awesome. So in terms of that, and in terms of the learning process side of things, do you have any tips for how people could try different ways of learning it if they do struggle with it?
Oh yeah, there's loads. So what I do in the videos is I start with a low assumption of knowledge to try to bring everybody in. So if you nobody minds as a learner being told stuff that they already know, because they feel like, oh, I already know this. This is good. That means I do know it. And if they don't know it, that's also good, because you start building everybody up to the same level. So when you're referring to social media, do you mean that's because there's a lot of oversimplification, a lot of grabbing of popular ideas, which are oversimplifications of the truth?
And some people, I'm not going to name names because I'm not getting into that. I don't like to badmouth people, but some people are literally running clinical training, selling courses for clinical training, but just trying to make it look like it can be really oversimplified.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So
for their own benefit.
There's nothing wrong with starting off coming in simple and pulling people in. One kind of nasty example I've got is the thalamus. So it's like, I tell the students, like, we don't tell them the whole horrible truth at the start. Neuroanatomy is scary to students, so we have a series of sessions through the 2 years, and when we start to introduce the thalamus, we say it's the sensory sieve, it's the sensory relay, and we talk about the 3 neuron chain of sensory stuff going to the thalamus, and the thalamus determining whether this information is useful right now and sending it up to the higher centre so you're aware of it. And then right at the end of the year 2, I say, okay, here we go, we're going to tell you the whole horrible truth, and I work all the way through all the nuclei of the thalamus, and we realise that it's involved in everything. It's tied to everything. It does everything. It's like, yeah, but I just need you to know that concept. So if somebody has a posterior cerebral stroke and it affects the thalamus, this is why you're getting all these weird signs, because it might just be the thalamus that's being affected. But you do have to start off from that simple idea so you can grasp that confidently, that the thalamus is a sensory relay. Cool, got that. And then when you're confident with that, you add detail onto it. And that goes for the whole body. I've been talking about myotomes recently. So dermatomes, people get pretty comfortable with. You've got a spinal level, so we talk about the spinal levels, we get used to this stripy pattern, this is okay. Dermatomes, so you've got your stripy map on the torso, and it gets a bit more confusing on the arms, but fine, everybody's okay with that. And then when you move into myotomes from dermatomes, which are exactly the same principle, and you've got individual muscle blocks innervated by spinal nerves at each level. When those muscle blocks come together and form the actual muscles of the adult, everybody starts to get lost and confused. But if you get that concept, you have a real understanding of what's going on in your patient. And when you're talking about tests, so you have to have this understanding that tests are limited, that you have to understand what accuracy and specificity means. And you don't just use one test, you use a battery of tests, you look at all sorts of things, you build up a picture, and you don't ignore, you can't all do this without the patient history. You're pulling all these clues together. So the more deeply you understand all of this, you understand all the little quirks. You understand why, and you might never, a lot of the time with patients, what it's like. You might never understand why this thing happens, but you've got a good chance of fixing it. If you fix it, great, job done. Don't know why that happened, but a lot of the time, if your understanding is really deep, you can figure out what's going on, and that just comes with time. So start simple, Start with those simple concepts, and that's okay. It's okay to dumb it down a little bit, but with time, add to it. And with anatomy, there is no right order. There's no correct way of structuring it. If you break it up into systems, it's wrong, because you do the cardiovascular system, but then you need to know the bits of the body the blood's going to, and If you do the musculoskeletal system first, then well, what about the nervous system? You need to know about the nerves that are innervating those muscles. So if you do and if you do it by region, again, you do the upper limb, well, where does all that stuff going into the upper limb come from? Whatever order you do it in is wrong. In our medicine course, we break it up into even smaller blocks. So each week has a topic. So I teach anatomy at the beginning of the week, usually related to that topic. So we break it up into even smaller blocks, which is even more wrong. But we tell students that we lay it all out for them and say, this is what we're going to teach this year in this order. And just be patient, and we'll do each block in turn. And as you get more and more blocks, it'll all start joining together, and then you'll start to get that bigger picture. So it needs a lot of time, a lot of patience, and a lot of trust. And it's very much a time on task thing. But the other thing that people need to realise about anatomy is it's a three-dimensional topic. So your visuospatial ability will affect your ability to learn anatomy. My visuospatial ability is probably very strong, which is why I like teaching anatomy, because I can read a paragraph in a textbook and I understand that in 3 dimensions inside my mind. Most students are somewhere in the middle where they're pretty good. Some students, if I teach them the bones of the wrist of the left wrist and then give them a right wrist, they can't transpose that. They can't work out what the bones are on the right wrist, even if you have the two wrists side by side, because their brain is just very bad at transposing that information about moving models around inside their brain. So they need to spend even more time in the lab working with three-dimensional objects. That goes true for most people. Most people, if you can work with 3D objects, you'll learn faster, you'll understand more deeply. But if you're really struggling with anatomy, that might be the thing that's sticking. And then one other point, if you're learning anatomy for clinical purposes, is every time you look at a structure and you learn about a structure, think about what it does. And if you think about what it does, then you know what's going to happen if it goes wrong, and bam, you're ready for all those clinical questions in the future. That said, can I ask you a question about, you were talking about relaxing people preparing for interview. Well, I have to do the same thing for some students preparing for exams. We probably do similar things, because if I'm running an exam, I'm measuring that student's knowledge. So I want them to be in the best situation they can be. So I'm measuring their knowledge, not their ability to pass an exam. And if they're not doing very well in anatomy, or if they failed an exam, their anxiety goes up. So we talk about, breathing, and we talk about visualization and focusing on what you're doing right now, not the outcome of the assessment. And we talk about other methods they might already have for controlling their anxiety. Have you got any top tips for me?
Absolutely. So there's I agree with all that, and the visualization and the focus side of things, and pre-seeing you tripping over your tongue. So even like visualizing tripping over your tongue, going blank, but what are you going to do? So that you can prep that and you can answer, because you go, oh, well, this has already happened. So then you get less flustered because you've visualized that it's already happened. You've already basically looked at the worst case scenario of you going mind blank. But hopefully, if you can get on top of that nervous system before you go into the exam, to an extent, because we know you're going to get that adrenaline dump where your heart's going to be racing. But if you can get on top of it outside and prior to, by doing the breathing techniques as you go, there's one that I really like from an acupressure technique point of view. So I'll just come close to my webcam so that people can see. So onto the anterior curve of the ear, so just a little ridge of the, I know you know where it is, Sam, I'm just explaining it for other people watching. Yeah. So in terms of the ridge of the ear, you want to point in, so you're in the little, let me just move my ear, you're in the little dip there, and you can feel a little ridge, and it feels like quite a firm little ball. So with that, you're pressing in the direction kind of in towards your head, towards the back of your eye, and you basically rub firmly back and forth at a rhythm of 2 strokes a second with that one, just like this there. Continue that for 30 to 60 seconds. You can do both ears at the same time. Just looks a bit less conspicuous if you're sat in a waiting room waiting for an interview, if you're getting one, or just go to the toilets and do it there. Or if it's exam, just stand outside the door like this, because everybody will be doing it once you've watched this episode with Sam. 60 seconds with that, and that just activates the parasympathetic nervous system, and it helps to just dampen down that sympathetic response from a fight, flight, panic. So I literally had this live. So in my master's exam, one of the MSK Masters exams. Also, another Sam, female Sam, was panicking like mad. Like, she'd gone completely red. She'd had that massive reaction up the neck. She was like speaking at 1,000,000 miles a second. So I literally got her to do the breathing. So doing the box breathing, so 4 seconds in, hold for 4, 4 seconds out, hold for 4. But she couldn't do the hold because she was so heightened at the time. So I just got her with her fingers in her ears for 60 seconds. And she came out, she was like, oh my God, thank you so much. Because it just calmed her down. And that's just a nice quick way to calm it down. Without all the, obviously, the more prepared you are for an exam, the more you've done in terms of the work, you will naturally be less nervous because you're ready for it. But if you haven't, or you're just somebody that naturally gets nervous, that one's one of my favourite ones, paralleled with the box breathing. So breathing in through the nose and trying to breathe in through the nose. And there is another one that I like as well, which is actually blocking your right nostril. So you're breathing through the left nostril. And that apparently, again, activates the peripheral nervous system and just changes which side of the brain is switching on. So it gets your kind of your Einstein functions rather than your emotional Frankenstein, apparently, according to, I learnt that at Neurogym, and it seems to work. So I did that with you may tell me differently on that one, Sam. I did that one with a student who was panicking in clinic literally last 2 weeks ago. She'd just come out really emotional, so we did the breathing through the nose and the ear one here, and closing her eyes as well, and that just really sent her 60 seconds and it was done, and she was like, whew, and again that red flusteredness had just gone. So I like those ones from a literally impacting the body response.
And there might be a number of reasons why those work or don't work, but the thing is they're safe, they're not invasive, and a student can try that out beforehand and see what works for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
It might just be just a change in focus to what you're doing rather than what's coming up.
Yeah, switching the brain off. Yeah, absolutely. But and that's it. You can try it in different scenarios because you know. So if you're getting flustered somewhere, say even if you're just getting annoyed waiting in a queue or somebody's shouting and you can't concentrate, just do the technique and see if it helps you just to switch off. But yeah, in terms of focus and going into preparation for exams, I really like binaural beats. So I don't know if you've heard of that, Sam. So you basically have to have your headphones in with it, and it sends one frequency through one ear, one frequency through another. And the science basically says that the brain creates that third frequency. So different frequencies will do different things. So you can find free playlists on Spotify. And I really like the focus and concentration one because if you have to sit down and write an essay or sit down to start revising, I am someone where my brain is just so like that I will clean the whole house before I sit down and do it. So that pre-procrastination of sitting down and getting to task. As soon as I found out about binaural beats, and I found out about these when I was writing my book, it actually was like a magic pill in my ears. I was just like, what is this? So usually I'd have to clean my whole desk prior to doing the work, but I popped these in, and I don't know if it's because there's that suggestion that it would work, that it worked straight away. You never know, bit of placebo. But it does seem to work really well, because whenever I don't have them in and I'm getting in that kind of jittery, my head's going, I think at 1,000,000 miles an hour. So if I get that jittery, I'm just like, right, I need my binaural beats in. So I go and get my phone, plug it in, and then within about 5 minutes of plugging it in, I'm like, oh, okay, right, I'm good. And I can focus on what I'm doing. Lists and tasks and things like that just don't help me if I've not got, I just need to focus on one thing, and then I'm hyper focused. Whereas other people so if I sit down, I can sit down for 6 hours. Once I've sat down, it's just sitting me down. Whereas other people may find that it's more useful to actually do the Pomodoro time blocking. So 25 minutes of work and then 5 minutes break, then back 25 minutes, but literally set a clock and make sure that you don't allow any distractions within that time. So your phone is away. You are not using your phone in that 25 minutes. And if you do, you add extra time on, or you take a break because you're just switching off. So take a bigger break, go away from your desk for an hour, go and do some exercise, exhaust the body, tame the mind, and then come back and sit down and focus on it. So those kind of things, focusing for exams, focusing for interviews, preparing presentations, anything like that. Those are the kind of the top 3 that I like in terms of focus strategies as well. How about you? What do you do for yourself?
I just have to get it done because I have to get it done because I've got a lot to get done, so I get it done.
Yeah, so you've got time pressure and you're just like, right, I'm on it. Yeah,
it's just always been like this as an academic,
Yeah.
I guess, I mean, you have this university with exams and stuff. I think the PhD was the first big one because the PhD is, you're in control. It's all up to you. And I managed to do mine was a big lab thing. It was molecular cell and developmental biology with some really difficult techniques. And I got it all done and written up within 3 years. So it was just a case of figuring it out for yourself. And that last year I didn't do anything except work and sleep, and that was it, so I think that just follows you, right? I was talking about this the other week in a vlog actually, and because I'm writing a book at the moment, I don't want to write, so most of the time I just complain about it. But what I do is I kind of let myself fall into it, so I've got whatever I need, I've got the notes and what have you written, I've got the bits and bobs, so I could write if I wanted to, and maybe I'll pick up a few resources and start having a little flick through. I don't have to write so many words or do this for so many hours. I'll just start having a look, and then I start getting pulled in, and then that's it, I'm okay, I'm away then.
Yeah.
But I don't restrict myself.
And I guess that's the thing, isn't it? When you find a flow that works for you and you're happy with it and it works. But I guess with the PhD, you had more of a... I know you can kind of take a while with them, can't you? Or you can be as focused as you possibly can be and get it done as quickly as you can be. But when you're writing a book, what's the book on? What are you writing the book on?
It's just a pocket atlas of neuroanatomy. So it's the smallest book I've written. So that should make it easier, but it's neuroanatomy. So neuroanatomy is kind of, it's because it's small, it's like, what do you leave in? What do you take out? How do I write this? How concise I am? How much do I describe this? Because you can go on forever with neuroanatomy. So it's not a lot of that. The biggest problem is that I want to learn. And if I'm writing stuff that I already know that you struggle to write in a different way, I feel that's less interesting. I feel a little bit too confined. So I've written a couple of books, and the first embryology book we wrote, we really enjoyed because we thought we're going to do this in a different way, and because we had a podcast, so we were writing it off the podcast, and that was a fun challenge. This one's fine. I just like complaining about writing books. And you see, that's another thing about the focus is because the deadline I think is Christmas, and I know that as soon as the students come back in September, I'm not going to have any time for anything. So then that focuses me to get it written now because we're coming to the end of teaching, and I've got a bit more time. That's my focus, is my experience of the pain of the future.
Yeah. So you know it needs to be done because you know what's coming up in terms of taking your time. So otherwise it's that or don't sleep to get it done.
Yeah. If I don't do it now, I know I'd be horrible in the future.
So in terms of the YouTube channel, so just so that people kind of get an appreciation of actually how much effort you put in, how long does it take you to record the episodes and upload them?
Recording's fine. I mean, I've just done almost a year of histology videos, which was great fun because I'm a molecular cell and developmental biologist, so I don't get to talk about cells much anymore. So that was an excuse to talk about cells. So the other end of my office, I've got a setup with the microscope and the cameras and what have you, so I can just sit down, switch everything on, and I'm away. So I talk for however long I talk for, say 30 minutes or 40 minutes. And then the editing might take 3, 4, 5 hours, depending upon how much labelling I'm doing. Whereas if I'm recording a video in the lab, it's usually late in the day when everybody's gone home, so I've got space in the lab. I've got to set it up, which takes a while. And it depends on the topic. I'm probably quicker nowadays, but I'll record for less than an hour, and then pack it all up again. And then
Yeah.
if it's an easy video, it might only take me a couple of hours to edit. If it's a complicated video, 5 or 6 hours.
Okay. It is a lot of work in the background, isn't it? I think people, because it's free content as well, people don't realise how much effort goes into popping it on there. So thank you for everything that you do putting in the background with it.
It's on top of, go on, as I say, it's on top of all the university stuff that I do, but the main aim is still that I'm making supporting material for the students at Swansea University, and if I've made it, I might as well share it with everybody else. But that's still my focus, is making it for the people here.
Yeah. And in terms of navigating the YouTube channel, so if people are looking for a certain area, is it set up in a way that they can, or do they just need to search Sam Webster Anatomy brachial plexus or Sam Webster Anatomy thalamus?
Yeah, there are playlists, but I've been doing this, it'll be 9 years this October, and it's basically, so before the videos was a blog, right? So I've always had a website, so I had a blog. So whatever we were teaching that week, I just write a blog article about what we were teaching. We were talking about this today, and we looked at this, and I told you about this. Here's a paper, go and read this. Here's some illustrations of the thing we were talking about. So when I moved to video, it was the same thing. It's like whatever I've been talking about that week, I'll just make a video about. And then, of course, eventually you run out of that and you start making videos about other things that you're interested in, or other things you'd like to expose the students to, because you don't have enough time with the students. We only have a very limited amount of time. So it's very disordered, because it's whatever I feel like talking about that week, whatever I'm interested in. Those then did get put into playlists. So there are playlists by region, but no, because YouTube is Google, the best way to find anything is just use the search engine. You know, any term you're interested in, just do my name and the term, and it'll pop up, because, you know, there's a transcription for every video that YouTube's made, I think.
Yeah, I must say it is really easy. I find it really easy, but I just wanted to get it into this episode to make sure other people could as well, because anytime I've wanted something, if I just put your name in with what it is, 9 times out of 10, there might be like 2 or 3 videos that are irrelevant, because obviously you have so much content over the years. I actually mentioned on my Instagram the other day that I was recording this, and I was excited that you'd accepted, because I've been following your content and used your content for ages, and I actually have referenced you in my book as well. And so when I put that on, so just to prove you're in the book, Sam. Right there. So it's I know you won't be able to read that. It says YouTube channels for visual learners. I would like to thank these 2 gents for their awesome YouTube content. I've spent thousands of hours just watching them in action and bouncing between both of them, particularly the brachial plexus videos, as they both provide a totally different type of visual experience in the ways that I feel are fantastically engaging. So thank you. And then I've got yourself down at Sam Webster, and then medical knowledge for the Ninja Nerd official in terms of his whiteboard stuff, because he does it on a whiteboard a lot of the time rather than with anatomy. So but when I mentioned that, one of my colleagues from way back in the day, no longer works with me, but he commented on the post and said, "Oh my lord, you've just given me a flashback to orthopedics when you recommended it to me," because we graduated physio in 2013 and there weren't many jobs. I was lucky to get one of few when I first interviewed. But he ended up working as a therapy assistant for ages. So I said, you really need to stand out. If you get to know your anatomy, which is coming full circle to what I said at the beginning, then you will be able to reference things better, and you'll be able to have a more detailed answer to your questions. So go and watch Sam, because he explains it beautifully. Yeah, so thank you so much for just continuing the content as well, and doing everything you've done, because yeah, it's absolutely awesome. Really appreciate it.
I was going to say, anatomy is the language of medicine and physiotherapy, right? So the more you practice the language, you got to be able to speak the language, right? So the more you use it, the more it becomes your language.
Absolutely. And then the confidence just flows because you know it, you've got that detail. So in my courses in the book, my book's called The Job Is Yours, I do go through body language and voice control and how to use your body language to impact your nervous system as well, and get you feeling more confident. But when it comes to an interview, when you are being judged on clinical knowledge, because there will always be clinical questions, the best thing you can do is prepare your knowledge in the areas that you know. that you know you'll be asked on, and gain some references that you can use as well. So yeah, I think the main thing is preparation, both for exams and interviews. But we know that you can't know everything, and same with me. So I will come back to your videos regularly, because if I'm not using anatomy and I'm not talking about it in a certain way, then I get rusty with it, because your brain does not store everything at the forefront. So this is what I try to explain to students and colleagues, is that you do need to keep refreshing it. And rather than thinking, oh Lord, I've got to go and read that book, if your brain doesn't work that way, which, you know, some people do, and some people can read a book and read it very quickly. For me, it takes so long to get through one page, even reading journal articles, because my brain reads and then goes off somewhere while I'm still reading, and then I'm like, oh, what did that say? So it takes me that long. Maybe not now with binaural beats, I'll have to give it a try. But yeah, for me, your content is absolutely awesome. So yeah, thank you.
That's no problem. That's why there's a lot of repetition in my videos. It's the same as when I'm teaching the guys here. There's just a lot of repetition. So you go around in that circles, you hear it again and again, but you also keep hearing the words. If somebody says it once, you kind of miss it. You do have to get it several times. Yeah,
absolutely. Thank you so much for your time today, Sam. Really appreciate it.
No problem.
So
anytime.
Anybody that is wanting to develop their anatomy skills, then make sure you give Sam's YouTube channel a follow. I am sure, Sam, you've already got a million and a half followers, I believe, on the YouTube channel, subscribers.
1.15 million, I think. Yeah.
1.15. So you've got quite a few. So, but I will keep telling people one-to-one and on my channel. And once my channel grows, I'm sure more people will find out about it. So I really appreciate your time today. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Nice to speak to you. I will take some of those tips to my students as well. If they all pass their exams, I'll have a great summer.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can get on with the climbing. Do you do any like big wall climbing outdoors still? You've saying it was quite dangerous looking after climbers.
Yeah, I'm out. Yeah, we're outdoors all the time. Yeah, we live on the Gower, and yeah, it's full of cliffs. Not much multi-pitch stuff these days, but yeah, trying to figure out what to do this weekend, because it's hot. But I know some cool shady places.